You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta a tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode. This week, as I'm sure you are aware because you clicked on it, I have my good friend, Mr. Joel Korte from Chase Bliss on the podcast. Oh man, it's been a long time. We talk about how long it's been on this episode. If you're not familiar with Chase Bliss, I'm actually a little bit surprised that you're even listening to this podcast because they have been one of the hottest brands in the pedal world for several years now. And they make absolutely amazing stuff. And if you haven't heard of Chase Bliss, you've almost certainly heard of AnalogMan. And if you haven't heard of AnalogMan, then I'm really confused as to how you are listening to this podcast or why. But my confusion doesn't matter, because I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad to be the gateway to these two amazing pedal companies for you. But that's probably not the case. Joel has been on this podcast several times, and obviously Chase Bliss has been supporting the podcast for a very long time. So if you want to get the Chase Bliss story, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go back and listen to Joel's previous episodes. They help kind of paint a picture for where we are today. And today we are primarily discussing the brand new Chase Bliss and AnalogMan collaboration, Brothers AM, which combines the Chase Bliss architecture with two King of Tone style circuits. Yeah, you heard that right. This thing is amazing. It sounds incredible. I actually play a clip of it on this episode. And without further ado, let's just get into this one with my buddy, Joel Korte. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, a show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have my good buddy, Mr. Joel Korte from Chase Bliss. What's going on, dude?
Oh gosh. Okay. I got my new mic. It might be a little hot here. I'm so excited. I just told you offline I got my new mic, so I'm actually going to sound like a pro, presumably.
Yeah, it sounds great.
So what's going on? We got a new pedal coming out. We're going to be talking about that.
Yeah.
The one question I have to ask, because I haven't been on for a while. I think the last time I was on, I was like tied for the record for being on the most. And I'm wondering where I'm ranking at this point, because it's been a while.
Let's see. I think you've
really
been on.
Important to me.
I think this is 4 times.
And that sounds right.
And let's see. There's a couple other people that have been on 4 times, but the record holder would be my buddy Scott, my business partner Scott at Stringjoy. I think he's been on 6.
He's your business partner though, so I mean,
I don't know if it counts, and he might not come on anymore. Yeah,
so I can catch up.
Yeah, he might not come on anymore because him and I are starting our own show. So,
like you and Brian.
Yeah, no, really, we've got like 7 episodes in the can. It might actually come out. Actually, It will. I think it'll come out the same time this episode comes out.
Awesome.
So go listen to Tape Spaghetti, everybody. It's out wherever you listen to podcasts. But
Cool.
we're launching all kinds of stuff on this episode. And I mean, we've got so much catching up to do. It's actually been way too long. Because I
can't remember when I was on last.
I think it was pre-COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
The old times, the before times.
Seems weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About the time I started working on the pedal we're about to talk about. So maybe
yeah.
it's just how we do things.
This was in the Chase Bliss office beer times. You know, I remember that was being discussed on the podcast.
Oh, I should go back and look. That would be like a good time capsule to go listen to all my appearances on the Tone Mob.
Oh, dude, this is a good thing to do. So let's go back a little ways. So
okay,
because we've been on this. You're one of the people in this business who I feel like we've had. You got started before I did because you worked at ZVEX, and we're not going to rehash the whole story. Go back and listen to those episodes, everybody. But I feel like by the time people started knowing who you were on a more personal level was about the time I was getting started, roughly somewhere in that ballpark.
So
it's like you, Chris Benson, and a handful of others, and myself, I feel like we were on this weird, completely different but parallel trajectory at the same time. There was something in the water in like 2014. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Chris and I talk about that a lot. Just, I think that's part of the reason why we're, all friends is that we just kind of went through similar things at the same time. And like, there's lots of events that we all like have a reference point for, So yeah, it makes sense.
It's a weird, wonderful world. But go back and listen to that. And the reason I brought that up was I remember the first time we recorded. I was standing, you didn't know this, or maybe you knew it, but you couldn't see it. I was standing in a fuel analysis lab, which sounds a lot fancier than it is. It's not very impressive. It's not that fancy. I'll tell you how fancy it was. I was looking at like a window mount air conditioner that I had to turn off so we could record. And it was like really hot in there, in like this dusty old laboratory. Where there's like x-ray machines and sulfur analysis machines and blah, 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 all this stuff. But I remember looking at that air conditioner and talking to you about rollerblading.
Rollerblading, right?
Yeah, rollerblading.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Or it feels like it. Yeah.
Oh, no, it was. I think it was like 2017.
Yeah,
2016.
because the child that I was rollerblading is 10 now.
And my kid, who was, I don't think quite here yet, is almost 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. I'm glad we're still doing this stuff.
Dude. Yeah. I wish I could have, I had a sense that we were on to something. Yeah. But I didn't know that for sure that it'd be like a decade later. Here we would be. But let's not rehash the past this whole episode.
To friendship.
Yeah, to friendship. To friends. Let's talk about this. Yeah. For the audio listeners, I'm holding up Chase Bliss Brothers AM. What's that AM? What is this for everybody that's listening? Everybody that's watching can see what I'm holding up, but tell me the story of how you and AnalogMike created this thing.
I'm gonna give so many inside scoops here on this.
I love it.
This podcast. I should say, as always, I think I've mentioned this on every Tone Mob podcast that I stutter. It's going to be less confusing if you're watching because you'll see, oh, that's what's happening. But if you're just listening, it's a little confusing. And I've been stuttering. I've been struggling a lot more lately than used to. Luckily, this is a very comfortable context for me on this particular podcast. Blake, I don't know what it is, man, but you just put a stutterer at ease. So thank you.
Hey, I'm glad to make you comfortable because I want to hear everything you have to say.
So yeah, hopefully this will go smoothly today, but no promises. because of my recent struggles. We actually I just reviewed the video that I made for Brothers AM, and it's like the most I've stuttered in any demo video, and it's honestly a little tough to watch because I'm like struggling, but it's how I talk sometimes. So anyway,
hey, it is what it is, and you've done a good job just acknowledging it and bringing attention to that more so than anybody else I know, as far as, people who also stutter. You do a lot for that community, and I think that's admirable. So
thanks, man. I always love to hear from other stuttering musicians and guitar players too, because that's like a kind of a unique tribe or something. Anyway, okay, so how long of a response do you want here? Because like I could maybe
I got
5
all day.
minutes. Okay.
I got all day. Yeah.
And I'm excited because I'm going to give some context here that I've been wanting to talk about, but like there's like hopefully it'll make sense after I explain everything. But here's how it happened.
All right.
So we came out with this pedal called Brothers, I think in 2018, I want to say something like that.
Yeah.
And it was cool. It was really cool. I think it's probably more successful as an effect for bass. I still love it. A lot of people love it. Some people really dislike it. And I think, sometimes I have been victim a little bit to trying so hard to be different, and that sometimes sometimes I let it lead me a little too much, I think.
Okay.
And I always loved the concept of that product, the UI, the way the channels interacted and everything like that. And it did okay. And then there was some stuff about it that like made it a little like tricky to manufacture. It sold okay. And so I think it was around for about 3 years. And, right when it was sort of on its way out, I knew I wasn't finished with this Brothers concept, or idea. And I also started to become, like when I first would hear about the King of Tone, for example, I never played it, so like everyone would say it was great. And, I would think, I'm like, well, I'm sure it is, but I don't know if I'm going to get my hands on one,
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got my hands on one, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just get it. Like this thing, I'm kind of one of those guys that like, I mean, one, I'm just not very good guitar player and, in the first place, but like I I'm leaning over my pedal board, and certainly with like drive pedals that we might have like a 3-band EQ or something like that, and it's always like, well, maybe I'll turn this up a little bit, or maybe I'll turn that down a little bit. And I found with the King of Tone, kind of no matter where I set it, it just kind of worked. Mm-hmm. And even if like I thought like, oh, maybe I'll turn the tone knob a little bit up, I still would be like, well, this still sounds pretty good. And like maybe you like turn the tone knob on the guitar, or like like you turn the volume down on the guitar. Like maybe like I found I was interacting more like it was just an amp, and I just played more, and it just sat well all the time. And I kind of got obsessed with it, I think, like a lot of people. And then, I'm thinking, gosh, if you look at the internal controls in the King of Tone, the dip switches in there, you can change between a boost, an overdrive and distortion. I'm like, God, that would just map right on to our thing. It's like those are the toggles. It just makes sense. It just fits. And I think I know because I just revisited this. I exchanged a few messages with Mike on Facebook, and we were friendly with each other, but I didn't really know him or have a relationship with him. But I just couldn't, shake it. I was like, man, if we could do something like that in our platform, I'm like, that would just be, I would love that, all the while kind of knowing like, well, we'd probably want to do something else, with it, just, but so I reached out to Mike and he responded, favorite, like he was like, left it open. Like, and so what I said is like, so I want to work on it. And I just want to know that I just like, before I start working on it, I want to know that like, you're telling me there's a chance.
Right.
Kind of thing. And he's like, yes. And so I struggled. And so, one of the big things that was hard for me that turned out to be really lucky later is like I found out very early on that sort of like the normal method of digital control for analog circuit that I was comfortable with and I was skilled with was using Vactrols. There's a whole thing there. I'm not going to get into it, but I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do that because the tone circuit is clever and like you just need to be able to use more exact values and Vactrols, as much as I love them, they can be like very frustrating in how variable that they are. So, but that was a problem for me because I wasn't experienced there. And we had another engineer on staff that was working on it, and it was kind of on and off, but we just couldn't get it to sound right. And it was such a bummer because like I just knew in my heart, I'm like, gosh, if Mike, I have to prove to Mike that like I know what I'm doing, and so every once in a while I'd check in with him, but it would kind of be like, hey, are you still interested in this, potentially, and he would be like, yeah, we're sure, like nothing's changed on my end. He did, at one point, the Duke of Tone came out. And so
that was with MXR, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so I was like, actually, that's awesome because I think that lives in an ecosystem where like our thing could still, live in some ways it's kind of nice, I always like to, if someone's like, well, I don't want to pay $400 for that. I'm like, well, there's this other awesome thing for that has the same kind of, vibe, or at least one channel of it. So that happened, and then kept struggling. And there was definitely some times where, I also have to say, when we were first working on it, we were trying to do outrageous things. Like we were trying to make it stereo, and there's just like not room in there. And the way you have to design the circuit boards for mixed signal stuff, it's not, it's one of those skills in life where I just feel like you just learn a little bit over and over again, and you make a lot of mistakes, and, using, the digital potentiometers, added to that. Especially with my lack of experience in that area. Anyway, so I'm struggling, but I've always, and we're doing other stuff. Also, the company's kind of like moving in a little bit of a different direction. We're like doing crazier digital stuff, and And so it was hard sometimes to see. It was like, well, is this going to fit? But I'm like, no, this pedal needs to come out. I need to figure this out. And so we make a little progress here and there, but still I didn't feel like we were anywhere close to, being able to show anything, to Mike. And, but, are you familiar with RJM? Oh no, I'm sure you are. RJM, like the MIDI controllers.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
I'd got to be friends with Ron and Sherry actually pretty early on. Since I started Chase Bliss, I remember we were at the NAMM show one time, and I had, their business is so interesting because their main customers are like the biggest rock stars in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like
people with the craziest rigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Sherry has so many funny stories about like, they'll have these huge people contact them. And they're looking for like a deal. And, at some point it's like, there's like, we can't do deals because you are the people who like normal, like just everyday players. I mean, sometimes some people do, but and they have like other products along their product line that they've rolled out, I think, to kind of like satisfy, all different kinds of players. But anyway, Ron and Sherry, their husband and wife team, super nice. Ron is probably the smartest engineer I've ever worked with. So I'm kind of foreshadowing a little bit here, but I saw that he came out with some programmable overdrives, and so I picked them up, and they're awesome. And they're quiet, and like they're like all the different stuff, like the zipper noise and stuff of the digital pots. I'm like playing with it. I'm like, man, Ron, it's like all this stuff I've been like beating my head against the wall now for years. And I always had a good relationship with, Ron anytime we'd hang out, and so I talked to them about it, and I said, I've had this thing I've been working on forever and I keep failing, and I see the opportunity, is there. And I was wondering if we could work on some of the, the technical stuff. And they were into it. And so once Ron was on board, things started to pick up, and we were able to get a prototype together that was just like, we worked hard on it, but it was like, at least something I could bring to Mike and just be like, I'm serious. See, like, I know I've been talking about this forever. I've been working on it, but like, so we go out there, and he's into it, and then we start talking about, cause then he sees like, okay, these guys, this is legit. And, he's on board with Ron, like explain like, that whole thing, and why I felt like I needed, cause you can't mess this up either. Right.
Right.
Like I can't, like, imagine if this pedal just sucked or something, obviously, he wouldn't be cool with that. But anyway, so the first time I go out there and we have it and Mike's into it, and I'm just like, I just remember being so nervous, it's the first time we met, in person. But then it got super fun because it's like, man, we actually really like each other, like we're friends. And then we were, Mike has all these connections to Japan because he lived there in the 80s for his job. And that's actually when AnalogMan got started, is he would get like the vintage parts that he wanted for repairs and like doing his own pedals, and like this Japanese market called Akihabara that's still there. It's not we have a lot of this in a long documentary that people, if they're interested, they might want to check out. But while we were there, we were hitting it off. We were having a good time. And yeah, we just connected on like the most random stuff. It was so fun. Like Jimmy Connor's late 90s US Open run, because he's super into tennis. And I remember my dad liked tennis, and I just like watched when I was a kid. And like, do you know that guy, Jimmy Connors?
No.
Oh, okay. He's just he was like this old tennis player that he was like at the later stages of his career in the 90s, and his celebrations would be so over the top. Like, you should just Google, anyone's interested, Jimmy Connors celebrations on YouTube, right, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, so we'd connect on stuff like that, just like, random stuff, because Mike's into tennis. And I we were talking about like all the Japan stuff's coming up, because we want to, we talk about it, for the documentary, and, we're shooting out there. And then we were going to Japan for the Tokyo Pedal Summit. And I was just like, dude, you should come with us to Japan. And he was like, he didn't say no, Nice. And so that was crazy, because one of the things that we established that we wanted to add to the to this kind of rough prototype that I have is like, we thought, well, we got to do something kind of extra special. And we both found out, it was so funny, because I was talking to the other guys. I'm like, I love the sound of the Beano into the King of Tone. I just love it. And then I asked Mike, and I was like, what are some pedals you like in? He's like, well, I love the sound of the Beano. And I just looked at the camera, and I was like,
there you go.
Yeah. And it seems like that would be easy to do, but the Beano is a germanium transistor. There's this whole thing. And anyway, that turned out to be really hard. I'll get to that. I'm getting there. I'm over halfway.
No, I'm in for the ride. Don't you worry.
Thanks
I'm
for
locked
letting
in.
me ramble, man.
I'm just thinking about, like, I remember it's funny thinking back, because I don't remember what we were texting about. Something random. Mm-hmm. And you were like, yeah. I'm in Japan right now.
That's
and I'm
right.
now realizing, oh, this is part of the Japan trip. Like, I was like, I want to go to Japan. Oh, did I call you?
You called me, and I remember thinking like, because you don't call me, very often.
I do. And you know what I do when I call you 90% of the time, unless it's like, hey, I heard this thing that you need to know about. It's mostly, I haven't talked to Joel in a while. I'm just walking around. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see if he picks up. And I think it was one of those times.
I feel like obviously the time zones were weird, so I didn't pick up, because
of course, it's
I was
nighttime.
probably sleeping or something. But
yeah.
But it's funny. I do not like to answer phone calls, but I pretty much always answer yours. I think
you usually do.
Yeah, I'll go for a walk. But they're always, I don't know. Anyway, we catch up and have a good time.
It's a good time. But yeah, I just was remembering, like, I think that's the last time I called you randomly. You were in Japan. That makes sense. Okay. So anyway, we're about halfway.
Yeah.
Hey, Rocky.
What's up, Vincent?
Did you hear about the latest?
Latest what?
The latest drop from Maris. It's totally insane.
No, tell me more.
Maris just released Enzo X.
What's that?
Enzo X is a supernova expansion from the original Enzo into the highest quality and most flexible studio synthesizer ever created in a pedal format.
Whoa!
Enzo X combines 5 synth types, 5 drives, 3 reverbs, and 5 modulations. It also includes a full 2.5 second stereo delay, all in one pedal.
That sounds hard to use.
It's not. The UI is from the same family as the Mercury X and the LVX. It's super easy to dive in and see exactly what you are tweaking in real time.
Oh, I see. It's right there on the screen.
Yep.
Is it just for guitars, though?
Nope. You can plug almost anything into the Enzo X, including your MIDI controller.
That sounds incredible. Where do I get it?
You can pick up Enzo X online at maris.us or at any of their fine retailers across the globe.
Did you just say across the globe?
They know what I meant.
Wait, are we getting paid for this?
I'm still waiting on that cash money from last time.
He better at least give us pizza for dinner.
I'm not giving him his Enzo X back until he does.
For more information, make sure you check out maris.us, and apparently I have to go order a pizza. How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Yeah. And so, the idea is it's like, well, let's follow Mike around and he can show us, where he used to get parts. And there's still some of that there. And it's amazing. Because it's like this particular spot is like how it looked in the 80s. But he's like this guy right here, because there's this guy and he's kind of like standing in this like hole, this like square opening. And then there's just like parts all around. And you can see it in the documentary. But he said like that guy, there'd be like rows and rows of him rather than just like one. Okay. And so we saw some of that. And then we were trying to find this like specific shop. And it was a little... it was, the whole experience was crazy, but like, walking around and he'd be like, well, there used to be something really cool here, but now it's like a cell phone accessories shop, that's kind of like, okay, well, we'll keep looking. And then, we were kind of we're like, well, let's try to find this one last spot we were kind of looking for. And we're looking at like this map that Mike had gotten off the internet somewhere to try to figure out where we are. And we're like, I think we're here. And finally we find this place and it's like, man, yeah, this is like what I would look for. And this is like a perfect example. And, he's like looking at the diodes and looking at the transistors and we're, looking at part numbers and it's just super fun. And then I'm still like, there's this big source of anxiety that I'm still having at this point because I couldn't figure out how to do the Beano right. Couldn't really use germanium. I wanted to use germanium, but we've run afoul of ROHS standards last year, and so like I'm at the point where I'm like every single component in every pedal I have to know one with 100% certainty, and like germanium transistors can be tough to source, and like I want to be able to make a lot of these things, also the ambient heat inside of the pedal is kind of warm because just the way we're doing like the power distribution and the filtering. Shout out Ron again at RJM, madman. Nice. Genius in the best way. it gets a little warm in there. So that's a thing, you know, with germanium, unless you have some technology like our friend Christopher Benson, you know, but I don't have that tech. Anyway, so I was really trying to find something silicon that could work, and I was having a lot of trouble. And I was actually feeling a little hopeless. And I don't know, I don't want to sound weird, like this was like kind of like a mystical thing or whatever, but I found this low gain silicon transistor in the shop. Now, this didn't turn out to be the transistor that we picked, but it's just like this old school transistor package too. It looks like a germanium transistor, but it's not. And I looked up the data sheet on my phone, and I was like, because it was like the only one too, and it was like low gain. I was like, what? This is crazy. And so like I got them all, and then that like sent me down a path where I found that there is all these silicon through-hole transistors in this old package that are still being made that might work. So I did like the part search, and I ordered, I think, I want to say 40 transistor types, but I think it was like 36 or something. And I ended up finding one that's just perfect. Nice. And it sounds a lot like the Beto, even though it's silicon. And I tweaked some other stuff like the input capacitor, because I found like that interaction is huge. And really, like I almost couldn't believe it. And so that just all worked out, man. Like, and then after that, we went back to Connecticut one more time to be like, hey, Mike, this is it. This is the final thing. As long as you say it's okay, you know. And he had some great suggestions for me too on the Japan trip, which just like it was like 90% there, you know. And then like but by the time we went to Connecticut the second time, and we were like A-B'ing it with the King of Tone, there was one point where he has this really cool switch where you can A/B stuff, and then it has an LED so you can see which one's on, and then you can turn the LED off so you don't know which side is which, so you can like do like a blind test. And at the end we had everything on. We had an overdrive channel going into a boost channel, which is like the stock King of Tone setting, and then we had the Beano in front, and they just sound the same, you know. Nice. And so that moment, like we're sitting there and like, oh God, I just felt so, because I just, you know, I've been thinking about this and working on this for so long, and just to kind of see it, and Mike's there, and like I know he like he approves, you know. And that'll be a feeling that I don't think I'll ever forget, because just to know things could go badly or in the wrong way, and just kind of see them go the way that you really hoped for years and years. It was so that's the story, you know. Wow. Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, when you emailed me about it, I was just like, wow, this is not something I really saw coming. Yeah. But it makes so much sense. And I have to say, the end result, I've played a lot of your pedals. Most of them, I'm pretty sure at this point. And this has got to be the easiest one, the most straightforward, even though it's in the same package, same form factor, a lot of the same things people expect from Chase Bliss. This is the first one I think that you guys have made that anyone can immediately plug in and just use, like without reading the manual, which is
that's nice.
And that's not to say that like I find the pedals difficult to use. I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff, so you know, I can pretty much figure, and I'm very familiar with them. I can kind of find my way around them. But this one, I was like, even if I was plugging this in for as a brand new pedal user, I could probably figure it out. You know, it's pretty obvious what everything does just right on the face of it. And what blew me away the most, and I've played the King of Tone before, and I've played other circuits with similar or pedals with similar circuits. You got it. You've got. There's no bad sound in it. It doesn't exist. Does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
I could put the tone control all the way down. It doesn't. It's so crazy how good it sounds in every mood. It's ridiculous, and with like different tunings. And I only thing I haven't tried it with yet is bass, but I know that's not its intended purpose. But even like baritones and everything. I mean, that clip I sent you, that was I think drop C.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
I love that you produce that clip so fast too, because like I hadn't heard a sound quite like the one you sent me, and but it didn't surprise me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Sure.
it was very like validating to be like, oh, it can make that sound too.
I wasn't expecting to make that sound.
Yeah.
That was double distortion and the boost
and the range master.
Yeah. But clean amp. Clean Benson Vincent.
There was a filthy tone, but very just musical, you know, but like aggressive, you know. And, yeah.
And I didn't mix that one.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally like I plugged it in. 15 minutes later, that popped out, and I was like, "Well, this is cool. This is quite tasty." And maybe I'll put that in the podcast or something. I don't know.
I think that would be awesome. I think too, like that was part of the challenges, and I hope people aren't disappointed by. I mean, we didn't want to do too much, you know, like, we wanted to make it sound right, or like it, you know, like we talk a lot, you know, we talk a lot about this in, you know, the copy, and I want to make sure I'm clear here because I'm realizing I said. Just a second ago that like they sound the same, and like they sound really similar. I'm not going to say they sound the same. I'm also, you know, spending a bunch of time in Mike's shop in Connecticut. It's my opinion that there's no way to clone the King of Tone, or it's just, it's going to sound like out there or whatever, but like once you're there and you just see how they do it, and they don't make compromises, and they do it their way, and it's just different, you know. I just don't think nobody's doing it like him anymore. Nobody they're just, Mike's just, I've said this before, he's just like one of one. Like he kind of just does things his way, and it's a high quality way, and it's a no compromise way, and people respond to that, and that's that. And
it's very no compromise. Like he's got his standards, and that's what it is. And if he can't source or make something that way, then it doesn't get made anymore. Yeah. That's just how he does things, and that's why we all know who he is.
Yeah.
Like he is 101, and I've had him on the show a long time ago, and it was still one of my favorite episodes, and I'd love to have him again. But you got to respect somebody who just like, nope, this is how we do it. Yes, we could shortcut it or do it a little bit differently, and maybe no one would ever notice. But that's not the way I'm going to do it. I love that.
And I feel like he's one of these guys too, where like he could really, if he had a big ego or like was kind of a jerk or something, like everybody would be like, oh, okay, like yeah, he's Analog Man, like, you know, that like he's allowed to be, but he's just not. He's just like,
no, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, and just down to earth, and just like a fun hang. Genuinely, wonderful person to be around.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So going away from this a little bit, because I think we've explored it as much as we can without people actually playing it or hearing a demo. But just Chase Bliss in general, you guys have done so many different things. I don't want to like rebeat a dead horse, but there's some things we haven't talked about on the podcast because it's been so long. Going direct, setting up the European shop and everything, like that's something I'm very curious about, because this industry is we actually kind of did the opposite. We started direct only because we had to, because nobody wanted another string brand in their shop. And so we had to build our own demand before dealers even would give us the time of day. And now, because of what we sell, we view it as we need to be available in as many places as possible. I always say this, and I've said it on the show a few times. We sell the cigarettes of the guitar world. Yes, people have their brand that they like, and if you like Camel filters, you want to buy Camel filters. But if you go into a shop and they're the closest shop or the closest convenience store, and they're the one right there, and they don't have Camel filters, you'll probably buy whatever's there. And the strings are kind of the same way, unfortunately.
Yeah,
a lot healthier.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and so we're trying to be in as many places as we possibly can, because we want to make it easy for our people to get our stuff. But I understand that the pedals aren't the same way. Amps, actually nothing really is the same way, other than maybe picks. Everything else in our industry, you don't necessarily have to be everywhere. Yeah. So what made you want to switch, and how has that been? And then like, what was it like setting up something in Europe?
Yeah, I'll try not to ramble too much, because it's another thing that could take the whole show. But we would always joke about it, like something would happen and be like, oh, we should just go direct. And it's like, ha ha ha, yeah. And it's like, no, you can't actually do that, And when COVID hit, and a lot of us all over the industry experienced this crazy demand, that sort of started something, where we're just like, gosh, but dealer places, we can't sell direct really, because like we're backlogged. I think we were backlogged at least 6 months, less than a year. And the problem that really hit home for me is we were doing this big rebrand and releasing a pedal called Habit at the same time as a rebrand. And it had been a long time since we released anything, because like during COVID, you kind of just were focused on like, how do we get this part from this random warehouse in Norway so we can just like make something. So you're just like, it was hard to develop things because you're just like it was so hard to source components. There was the huge shortages worldwide of everything.
You're one of the people I called as soon as I was like, hey, I was like, I'm hearing about this. And it was I think you and Chris and Jack, and those were my first calls as soon as I heard a rumble. So I remember that well.
Yeah. I'm thinking about all the times talking to you on the phone, just like pacing around,
That's my life.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, I think, excitement of like, wow, they haven't come out with anything for a long time. And it was a delay. And Habit, it's like our weirdest pedal by far. But we sold out, like we sold a ton of them. And I thought we were in, it's like small business stuff is insane. Like you're kind of always out of money, and especially if you're trying to grow,
Yep.
And so like my accountant was kind of like, Joel, like these numbers aren't looking good, and like blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, we got, and then Habit just went crazy, and we sold out our whole production run, and like I do inventory for the quarter, and like basically it was like, from a cash flow perspective, it was like 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, and we needed a grand slam to win, and it feels like that a lot. It's kind of, but we hit it. We hit the grand slam. Right. And so I'm like, oh yeah, once the numbers get back from my accountant, like everything's going to be healthy and look good because this release was so successful. And I look back and it's like, we lost money. We're down money. So I'm like, okay, like my business model is broken. Everything went as good as it possibly went, and we lost money as a company. And so I felt like I had two choices. It was like, one, I could scale up and try to do more volume to, to figure out how to become profitable. But then I'm looking, we still had like 6-month backlog, and then I'm thinking, if, and the deal, it's like, so working with dealers is so much work, and it's great, but like, I'm sure you more than anybody, it's so much work.
Well, we've got two guys it's their full-time job.
Yeah.
That's what they do. It's a ton of work. And because everybody's a little different, right? And everybody has slightly different needs. And, the one guy only takes orders over the phone. Another guy only takes orders over the internet. Another guy, wants these terms, and you have to explain that you're not a bank. And, it's all this stuff. It's more than you would expect, I think, as a consumer.
Yeah. Yes. And there's so many things that I felt like we'd have ideas, like even like the mystery box. You kind of can't do that with a dealer network. Maybe you can, but like there'd be so many ideas I would have, and I'd be like, oh, we can't because of the dealers. They'll get mad, And anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But the main reason was we were losing money, and that we were going to have to either, do more volume, raise prices or whatever, or I was like, if we just sold direct, we get that, we get the then we don't have to give the cut to the dealers, and maybe we'll, then we'll be profitable. We seem to be able to sell the stuff on our own. The other thing is, like, our pedals, they're not strings. Like they actually take a long time to learn, and bless their hearts, not all dealers are like this, but most of them had no idea how our pedals work. They just knew that they sold. So they would buy them. And then it just felt like I'm like, the more I thought about it, the more I loved it as a solution. Now, saying that, we did have, and our next pedal coming out after that was Generation Loss, which I knew was going to be a hit, because I'll skip it over, but I knew it was going to be great. And I'm like, if we can launch that pedal as the thing, then that's the right product for it, And so we did that. It went great. And we're chugging along. And like, so what we did is, like, we released that, we fulfilled that direct. And we were, when we were making the transition, we told all the dealers, we're like, hey, we're not taking any more orders, but we will fill all the orders we have on the books right now, unless you don't want to. If you want to cancel your order, that's cool. But we had revenue coming in from that. We had the revenue coming in from Generation Loss, and so things were looking pretty good. Then when we get to the point where we finally, it was like 6 or 8 months later, we filled all the orders on the books, and it's like, all right, open for business, direct orders, chasebliss.com. And it's like, our revenue dropped like 70%.
Whoa.
Like overnight. And like, in retrospect, I feel so stupid because we stocked all of our dealers, and so we're competing against them. And because I felt like it was the right thing to do, but we're competing against them, and it's like, well, they don't have to just buy from us right now. So it's like they, there's our products everywhere still, and we're not taking new orders, so we're not getting that revenue, and nobody's really buying from us because our pedals are everywhere still. And so luckily we had Generation Loss to sort of kind of pull us through. But like, I would say, and then the next pedal that we had come out was Mood Mark II. We're so lucky. And like, up until the pre-order to that, we were like, it was like the most broke I've ever been in my life. And so the transition from having your pedals everywhere in dealerships worldwide, who also have no incentive to, like, be a good dealer partner and will slash prices, because why would they?
Let's get rid of it.
Yeah, they're mad at you. They're like, a lot of dealers are, and again, I totally get it, but like they don't like Chase Bliss because, you can connect the dots, which is unfortunate and I feel bad about. But anyway, so we got through by the skin of our teeth, but now it's awesome because we can do kind of whatever we want. We kind of have, our people, our community that, are going to support us. And then, we have, we're able to make a profit. So yeah, that was more rambly than I wanted, but
I think if I'm reading between the lines correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it seems to me that the options were do that or raise prices significantly in order to make it work. And in doing so, while it did irritate a lot of dealers, and I understand that, it actually was a benefit to the consumer at the end of the day, because you probably could have, I don't want to sound like a creepy capitalist or anything, but you probably could have got away with it. You probably could have raised them enough to cover, and it probably would have worked because the demand seems to be there for the most part. But that's not what you were trying to do. You're like, I look at things like this a lot. I go, when I'm trying to price things, you're looking at what it costs, adding in dealer margin, all these taxes, all these things. And then the last question I ask is, but would I buy it at that price? And sometimes the answer is no. And that product maybe doesn't get to come out because it's like, well, if I wouldn't even buy it at that price and I'm making it, that seems stupid.
I try to ask myself those questions earlier in the process now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I should probably ask them earlier than the last question. I guess I should say the calculations come first. I don't usually make the thing.
I think there's something to be said about this too. I just want to make this because I think it's cool and somebody will buy it,
There's that too.
Which has its advantages too.
Yeah. The ready, fire, aim can be beneficial in some circumstances. So what was it like setting up the shop in Europe?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that was part of it too, because, so after, I think I mentioned this, we had this conversation where someone joked, or I was like, well, we should just go direct. And then we all kind of looked at each other and nobody laughed. And we're like, maybe we should go direct. And so then I was like, guys, I really like this idea actually. And everybody was pretty excited about it. But the guy whose job it was to, that big job that we were talking about, to interface and work with the dealers, maybe like 2 hours after the meeting, he comes over to my office and he's like, well, what am I going to do now? once we do that. And I was like, Tyler, dude, he's like the third or fourth employee we had at Chase Bliss, like super talented, super smart, super good, super hard worker. It's like, well, yeah, you do artist relations. Like you're going to have a job, man. But then he comes to me and he's like, hey, I really want to talk to you about something. I need maybe like 20 or 30 minutes of your time. And he had like a serious tone. And I was like, oh God, what, because could be anything, like,
so I murdered
family member
and I need to
sick or I'm quitting or like, but it had that like serious sort of a vibe to it. And so he lays out this plan about like, me and my partner Liz, who did not work at Chase Bliss at the time, but I love, she's amazing. He laid out this plan about like, I think me and Liz should open up a hub in Amsterdam and to support the direct thing, because that's a huge part of our market, and that this going direct thing is going to suck for them. And I've always wanted to live abroad. I've always wanted to try it. And and he had all the numbers. He had it all worked out. And I couldn't believe it, but I looked at it and I was like, I loved it. And I said, please, why don't you proceed as if this is happening? And he's like, all right. So they started looking into it. I remember the conversation I had with my accountant, that, the guy that would always tell me I was screwing up. Now he trusts me. Now he just trusts me. He kind of looks like my dad, and he's like the same age. So it's like, shout out to Terry. He's probably, no, he's not listening. Anyway, Tear Bear.
I don't know why. I don't know why that hit me in just the right way. Of course, the accountant's name is Terry.
Yeah.
I love it.
Best. I
love
him.
it. It's amazing.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
And he's on the phone with me, and I'm telling him, like, oh, no, Terry, it's going to be great. Like this, like, and then he's just like, don't do it. Don't do it, Joel. Don't do it. Don't do it. He just kept saying, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then he's like, I'm like, well, Terry, I'm doing it, man. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm going to do it. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to say it one more time. Please don't do this. But if this is what, if this is what we're doing, then I guess this is what we're doing. But I just have to tell you that this is a really bad idea and you shouldn't do it. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to his advice because I will say this, it was 1,000 times harder than I thought it would be. And if it wasn't for Liz and Tyler, it wouldn't have worked out because there's so much, it's so hard to set up a business there. Even to just open a bank account took so long. Like in the US, it's crazy. Like you can be up and running in a couple hours. I feel like you set up an LLC on like LegalZoom and like walk into Wells Fargo and like, here's my business. And I'm like, here you go. Here's
I started Tone Mob LLC in a fuel tank farm on my cell phone.
Dude.
And then the next day went into my bank and opened a bank account for it.
Yeah.
It was so easy.
Like you're just in business and it is not like that. And especially I think probably doesn't help that, we were, we didn't have anyone there that was starting it. We were starting it from. So yeah, I mean, so much stuff. But it's turned out to be really good. People have really responded to it well. It took a while for people to kind of know about it, but they and Tyler and Liz have done an amazing job. They do repairs over there, and so it's been there's a lot of upside, for our customers in the EU. I'm glad I didn't listen to Terry on that one, but I've listened to Terry on many other things, and he's been a very good advisor for me.
We've actually talked about not for direct purposes, but for direct and also for managing dealers, because we look at how we did America. We're like, we had to build our demand with the customers first before dealers were interested. And we're trying to get into Europe more, and we're running into the same problem where, the dealers over there are like, oh, yeah, we've kind of heard of you.
Yeah,
like,
we got strings.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, oh no, man, we're trying to do things differently. And some of them are receptive to it, but a lot of them are like, nah, this is the last thing we're interested in. And so we keep going like, well, maybe we need to do the same approach. Maybe we need to build, direct to consumer demand over there. And then we're like, okay, well, there's no getting around it, especially now. Let's not get into that. I
feel like there's so many topics that we're like, oh, let's not go down that rabbit hole because that's another podcast hour,
Yeah. But it's just it's expensive to ship over there, and we've done some things and found some ways to make it cheaper, but it's just expensive. There's just no way around that really. And so setting up a EU fulfillment has been on the brain a lot, and I don't know if we'll ever actually pull the trigger on it, but we've really have considered it a bunch of times. Maybe we'll do it one day. I don't know. If I do, I'm gonna come to you first and be like,
yeah, dude,
what did you do? What do I not do?
Definitely happy to share that journey. I mean, it would probably just be me being like, here's, let's set up a Zoom with, Liz ended up doing a lot of the administrative work, but she's just so awesome. Yeah, I think actually that was the thing, that Terry didn't understand was the power of Liz, because he was like, Tyler's girlfriend, like what, it just didn't look good on paper, but I knew anyway. And we just moved into a new space. Actually, one thing I think could happen down the line, but we just want to take it really slow, especially with all these new regulations in Europe now, would be to be like a hub for like other small pedal companies, so that they could sell direct in Europe without, and making it like a win-win for everybody. That's something we would really love to figure out. But, we just actually crossed this hurdle where we can sponsor our own visas now.
Oh, cool.
We got rejected once and then like appealed it. And it was, so that was another whole thing. But like, so we can actually like hire people now. So that, there's a lot of potential I think some different things that we might want to do over there.
Well, yeah. So that was all the business side of the conversation, which is always interesting to me. But I
think everybody's kind of interested in how small businesses work a little bit,
You would think that it wouldn't be for this audience, but I haven't had a businessy episode in quite a while.
Okay.
And I think, and every time I do, I'm like, oh, this is probably not. They're wanting to hear about pedal orders and stuff. And then the feedback doesn't indicate that that's true. They're like, oh, I loved hearing about all that. I didn't know,
Cool.
So thanks for sharing all that. Yeah, it's I think it's really interesting because a lot,
the darkness.
Well, I mean, the perception is that customers have are not always accurate. Because they just see, oh, he sold X many units of this, and that means he has X amount of money. And I wish it was that easy, but it's super, super not. It just isn't. There's so many things that eat away at that pie. You're lucky to have pie left. And I'm not trying to sit here and say I would want to do anything else for a living. That's not me complaining. That's just the reality of running something in this day and age in this industry. So thank you for sharing that.
There was, this will just be like a nice little final exclamation point on I think what you just said. But there was a point in between before we launched Mood Mark II, or even after that, because the initial sales of that actually weren't great. And strange as that sounds, because it's our number one selling pedal, but I had to lay some people off during that time. And I remember like when it was creeping up on me, like it was like getting in my head. I was like, oh, I'm certain now I'm going to have to do that. And also, but like not wanting to, like imagining the conversation, and just feeling like, gosh, am I even cut out for this? Do I even want to do this at all? I don't like my job. Like, as weird as it is to say that, like, I hate my job. I hate this. I hate the financial stress of it. And I remember one time I told my wife, I was like, I'm going to set my phone on the table here. I'm just going to go for a walk. I will be back in a few hours. But like, I just went into like a park nearby and I just walked in the woods and sat down and just bawled for like 20 minutes. Face just all red. Like, cause I just, and there's just some of that happens,
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're going to do,
and everyone thinks that you got the answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well,
yeah,
I've never done this before. So do I have the answers? I mean, Scott and I talk I said this on the podcast like 400 times, but him and I, the reason our episodes go so well when he comes on, and the whole reason we're starting a show is because every time he comes on, people are like, wow, you guys have such a good rapport. And I'm like, yeah, because we talk on the phone for an hour to 3.5 hours every single working day. Mm-hmm. We probably should know how to talk to each other at this point. But at the amount of times we've said, wow, we would went crazy without having that sounding board, even if we're just being echo chambers, and saying the same thing back and forth to each other. There's something to be said for having that in your life. And I guarantee you, like, I would have cried in the woods many times at this point if it wasn't for having somebody I could call.
Dude,
so you can call me, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's so funny you mentioned that, though, because that's when Zach, he's kind of like does everything at Chase Bliss. He's my first employee.
I've watched the development of Zach's beard over the years. I remember when it wasn't much of a beard, and now it's magnificent.
It is. It's glorious, and we that was just like a challenging time for us. But one of the things he told me is like, dude, like when these situations happen and you go inward, we don't know what's going on. You don't talk to me. And I really learned that, the hard way. So I, now, and it's funny, like I'm working my way out of the pattern, but like I'll start to kind of go to a dark place. I'm like, how am I going to figure this out? Like, what am I going to do? But like, instead of going into that dark hole, I'll just like ask the other like people in leadership positions at Chase Bliss and be like, hey, I've been worrying about this for like a week now. And here's the situation. And here's why I'm worried. And then like people have ideas and we fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but like, I still gotta break myself out of the pattern,
I wonder if that comes
But you're doing that every day with Scott,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other side of that coin is sometimes we're the only ones that we can talk about it with for whatever reason, And so it's just good to have that. But, I have that with some other people too, the aforementioned folks in this podcast that we've referenced a few times. We talk about things and I do have, it's something that I think the reason you probably go inward, this is just me hypothesizing, right, is the same reason that a lot of small business owners tend to do that. Because in the beginning, there isn't anybody to talk to. Mm-hmm. And the beginning can be 5 years, 7 years. Like, and you you can't necessarily go to, an employee that you just hired and be like, oh, listen, man, things are real rough right now.
Exactly.
Light up
and I
open a bottle of scotch. Like, listen, I'm having a hard time. Let's sit down and talk about it. And he's like, I just got here. I don't know where the bathroom is. Like, you can't really do that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably where that tendency comes from, is you got used to handling everything yourself, which just can be a superpower in certain situations, but recognizing when it's not can be tough because you get used to wearing all the hats.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but you recognized it, and that's half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that went fast. We're already over an hour. I didn't even realize that. Look at us go.
That was the fastest hour ever. Before we're gonna wrap up this portion soon, right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
now?
Yes.
Because Okay,
well,
I felt
there's no gun to anybody's head, so we're good.
I wanted to say one more thing about RJM and Ron, because I feel like if I was listening to this and be like, wow, if I'm watching like the documentary and like, sort of the supporting materials around it, I wouldn't even know that, RJM and Ron were involved. And that was like a really, I'll be honest. Like I wish that it wasn't like that. But whenever we would try to figure out how to fit that into like the story, it was like, well, this is really about Mike and the King of Tone and the Beano, and where we kind of landed is that, and I'll say this: Ron and Sherry feel the same way. We really like each other, and we really liked working together on this project. And I feel like that there's a 100% chance that we're going to collaborate on something in the future. And we have had some ideas about that. So we're kind of like, okay, this didn't make sense to like have you as part of like this story, but there will be a time where we will be able to tell the RJM story, and it is a great story. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because Ron and Sherry played a huge role in this, and I am a Ron super fan. There's so many times he's just the best communicator. Like so many times where like I'd be certain and be like, oh, this is wrong. Like Ron, like this is, and he'd be so like patient with me, and then he was always right about stuff, and just, I don't know how he responded to those situations made me just respect him even more. Anyway, shout out RJM. Wow. Ron and Sherry are the best.
Shout out RJM. I'd love to meet them.
They're
I've never
awesome.
met them before. I know of them, of course. They've been around, feels like forever, but and yeah, I'd love to hear. I bet they've got some crazy stories.
They do. They really do, actually. I don't know how many of them they can tell. I think they can, but like, yeah, the craziest stories I don't think they can tell on a podcast, but they got a lot. Maybe with a lot of big artists.
maybe on Patreon.
Yeah, maybe on Patreon.
Well, Joel, thank you for taking the time to come on. We really should do this more often.
Yeah, man, it's so fun.
At least annually. Why are we messing around? We really should do this way more than we do, especially now that you got a mic.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just feel better. I just feel there is a couple times where I clipped a little bit. I'm figuring out the levels, but I'll get there.
That's all right. Clipping. We're guitarists. We love clipping.
Yeah, you're right.
It's our favorite thing.
We do.
Yeah. So everybody, go check out the Brothers AM. Okay. And Joel isn't just on this show because he's been supporting the show forever. I was like, you gotta come on and tell this story. I have to know how this unfolded. So go check that out where you get your Chase Bliss products. And yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And I can't ask you the classic questions because you already answered them. So,
man.
We'll get into some shenanigans on Patreon, though.
Sounds great. Into it.
All right, folks. For Joel, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There you go, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you need more with Joel and I, guess what? We slid over to Patreon for more. So go check that out, where for just $5 a month, you'll get access not only to the ad-free version of this podcast, you will get access to the bonus episodes that come out every week. There is another conversation that Joel and I had over there, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So go check out the Brothers AM, check out the Patreon version of this podcast, check out Chase Bliss, check out AnalogMan, and have fun making great music with great tools. All right, everybody. I'll talk to you on the internet very soon. Later.